Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Tills4Thrills podcast, where today we are going to be covering some of the Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf case. Super excited to bring this one to you because we feel like there's a lot of controversy surrounding it that we can kind of pick apart and discuss with you guys and discuss with each other, and kind of formulate educated opinions based on what the evidence shows and what it's probably going to look like in the future. Very tragic, thing that happened, but I think too many people are focusing on the race aspect of it because I'm not really sure it was a racial thing. It's, hey man, two kids with big old egos that are doing sports. With that said, I do want to talk a little bit about today's sponsor, Dubby. It's an energy supplement with no sugars, no artificial dyes, no crash and jitters. It keeps you focused. And if you go and use the promo code Tills4Thrills at checkout, you get 10% off on us. So again, that's w.gg. You can check out their cool collabs and everything. They're pretty awesome. On eligible products, you go to the checkout, and then you type in the Tills4Thrills. It's right there on the screen, and you get 10% discounted on us. With that said, I am going to introduce my beautiful co-host, Nick Straub, everyone.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Nick coming back at you again. So yeah, just like Julian said, we're super excited to bring this episode to you guys, and it's a tragic thing. It's something that didn't necessarily need to happen. And I agree with Tills. I think that it's something that big old egos. Both kids are in a lot of sports. Testosterone's flying. And we're definitely going to get on into it. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, if you guys want to, talk to us about a future topic, you can always email us at the Tills4Thrills podcast at gmail.com. You can also follow us on all of our other social medias. We have Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, the X, right? Come follow us. Come talk to us, right? I think other than that, let's get on into it, baby.
Yeah, before we do get started, I do want to say that we are still in the process of setting up our Patreon. I know last week we had kind of discussed it. We're trying to set up a Patreon to bring you exclusive content, some behind the scenes stuff, basically like how we go about creating the podcast, or maybe some of the interviews that we do beforehand with some of the guests, so that we get a feel for where they're coming from, some of their experiences, and see if their stuff aligns with ours. And then, of course, it's always going to be early on the Patreon. So when we record an episode and we throw it right up, Patreon members will get it before anybody on YouTube.
Yep.
With that said, if you'd like to, you can go become a free member at patreon.com/the Tills4Thrills podcast. And then I know last week we also said that we were working on a Discord. I was supposed to send that link at the very beginning of the week. We ran into some technical difficulties with that, so we will be resolving those issues. With that said, I think it's time to get into it. And yes, I will be releasing that link in the near future, and I'll let you know when. Now, before we go and dive into essentially what happened at Memorial High School, right? I know, Nick, you said that you worked security before.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
It was interesting, man. It was fun. There were some things that were kind of like rent-a-cop things, which is what it is. You're kind of just standing there being a professional witness, as we like to call it. And then there's other things that were super fun. Getting to pull security at high school football games and interacting with teachers and stuff like that, and to just kind of like have it come full circle, like going through high school, then becoming an adult, going to a high school to like perform security because fights break out and testosterone in sports and all this stuff, right? And then you get to talk with these people and they're like, oh yeah, back this and yada yada. But it was really cool, man. It definitely opened my eyes to a lot of different experiences that I wouldn't have had had it not been for, being in the position that I was in. So it was definitely super interesting.
Right. So I know like security is a huge aspect in the Army, and um, as a security guard who did eventually join the military and go through all that stuff, you know firsthand what that looks like and everything. My son trying to be the superstar over here. So go a little bit into your escalation continuum and describe to us what that's like.
Yeah, so I have it pulled up right here because it's been a minute, so we'll kind of go over it. So basically what the escalation of force continuum is, or the use of force continuum is it's something that's also taught to a lot of law enforcement as well. And basically what it just goes into is you are presented with a situation and you escalate a certain way, and then you de-escalate also a certain way. So let's say, for example's sake, you're inside of a gas station, right? And somebody comes in and is, two other customers are screaming at each other and they're arguing and that sort of thing, right? Obviously, your first response isn't going to be to pull out a knife, to pull out a gun and go, get on the fucking ground, let me see the back of your head. You know what I mean? You're not going to do any of that crazy shit, right? Because it's crazy. You're going to go to jail, right? But basically what the escalation of force triangle goes over is there's certain levels to how you can deal with those kinds of things. So, the first one being the base layer of the triangle being presence, right? So just showing somebody that you are there and that you are aware of the situation of what's going on.
Can you by any chance, can you go ahead and put that on screen and kind of show us and walk
Yeah,
us
absolutely.
through what we're looking at so we can get some idea?
Yeah, so we got this bad boy here.
Okay.
So basically, as you can see, if you guys can see my mouse, right down here at the bottom, we have presence. So this is just, making sure that you're showing people that you're there, you're alert, you're understanding what's going on, right? As we move up, we have communication. So whether that be verbal communication or whatever it might be, saying, hey, what's going on, those kinds of things. As we move up the
I said,
triangle,
hey,
right?
what's going? Sorry,
No, no, you're good. As we move up the triangle, we get to soft physical control. So that can be like pressure points or, like moving people around instead of, because there's moving people around and then they're slamming people. You know what I mean? Throwing
right.
people, pushing, shoving, which is going to be under hard physical control. So this is also where like a subject would assault you with some type of physical contact, and the appropriate response to that would be to protect yourself by hitting, kicking, striking the person, whatever the case might be. Then we move up, it's starting to get more and more dangerous. We have alternatives to firearms, so these are going to be tasers, these are going to be OC spray, these are going to be any non-lethal resort that you have, to deadly force, which is obviously the last thing that everybody wants to go to because you don't want to take a human life if you don't have to, right?
Right.
And
It holds
even,
value.
yeah, exactly. And it even says, use deadly force only as a last option and if it's legal to do so. So, meaning, if you're within your legal right to do so and you have no other option out of the situation, then, you know, here we go. And then obviously, we see that we have the de-escalation on the other side. So, and it's appropriate to, present yourself in a situation starting at the bottom and working your way up to hard physical control, getting in a physical altercation with somebody, and then de-escalating from there. Like it not all the times is it just going to go straight up to the deadly force. Sometimes it might just go up to communication. Sometimes it might go up to soft physical control where we're using pressure points and stuff like that. Sometimes it goes, right up to alternatives to firearms. Sometimes it just goes to hard physical control and it comes back down. You know, but this is just kind of showing, you know, different levels to a dangerous situation that you can
Right.
be placed in,
Another thing to discuss about this, so is like back in 2019 or like 2016 or whichever marked the major year that some police officer went off the rails and you know allegedly or in fact did kill a suspect without using that escalation of force continuum, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, now you have what's being turned into a huge race war here, and that's one of the biggest things that I have an issue with, is that, nah, man, these are two kids, testosterone, X, Y, and Z, insert knife, and there you go, right? Like,
Sure.
I mean, that's essentially what happened. Now you have people saying, oh, well, you know, this and that and blah, 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 and Kyle Rittenhouse, and comparing it to like 4 or 5 other things. The only thing I can see that is compared to is trials in which the bail was set at like $200,000 to $500,000, right? Versus here, just a few days ago, kid got to go home on house arrest when the judge lowered the bail from 1 million to 250,000, which, not surprising.
Yeah, but didn't Rittenhouse also get like a bond set at like $1 million initially too?
I would have to do a little more research than I've done, but you're talking about, you know, so first and foremost, I think it was Minister Dominique Alexander who just did that press conference.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently he's the leader of an organization called the Next Generation Action something or other. Hold on, let me pull up my notes here, because I do have it. It's
Hope you guys like that photo. Had some pretty little colors in there for you guys.
yeah,
In
so
case you can't read.
it's the Next Generation Action Network, right? And they're an activist group for systemic racism, civil rights issues, and stuff like that, right?
Right.
Now, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you right now, this dude's a criminal, right? So Dominique Alexander, or Dominic, or however you pronounce his first name, we'll just call him Minister Alexander for now, is a self-proclaimed minister as a community leader. I don't even see where it says anything about a religious thing here.
So it isn't a religious thing.
Yeah,
up front at least.
So I said blah 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 blah. So Dom, we'll call him Minister Alexander again, continues to serve as a minister and lead the Next Generation Action Network, despite his legal controversies due to a combination of personal resilience, community support, and the nature of his ministerial role. The title appears to be self-designated, reflecting his roles as a community leader and activist rather than indicating formal ordination through a specific religious institution.
Okay.
Yeah, so it says in many activist circles, the term minister is used to denote a commitment to service and leadership within the community. Now, with that said, okay, cool, not a religious thing. Got it. He's an activist, right? But you'll see here in 2009, felony injury to a child. He was convicted of causing serious bodily injury to a 2-year-old child while babysitting.
While babysitting?
While babysitting. He initially received probation, but violated his terms multiple times, leading to a prison sentence in 2016.
First off, it's crazy that he only got probation.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that a child was involved.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, I was watching one of the podcasts I follow and everything, and they, I think they did a little more research on the subject, but apparently he shook the baby. Yeah, like
holy shit,
like
yeah, like manhandled. Yeah.
Well, now fast forward to 2017, felony theft charge. He was indicted for felony theft related to a business dispute in Denton County. The charge was enhanced due to a prior forgery conviction. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 2 days in jail with credit for time served. In 2019, family violence charge. Alexander was indicted for continuous violence against the family, a third-degree felony, after allegations of domestic abuse. The charges were dismissed in 2021. His criminal history includes convictions for theft, making false police reports, and evading arrest. Now, that was the dude who was on the podium, right? And got Austin Metcalf's father kicked out of the press conference when they went to go do this. And you know, why would he do that? Metcalf's father was there. He wasn't there violently. He wasn't there arguing. He wasn't
From what
there.
I saw, he was just standing there, like just
he was standing
hanging
there.
out.
And the Next Generation Action Network called the police and had him removed from the premises. Oh, and get this, bro. Nobody was stabbed.
Yeah.
Nobody was fucking stabbed. He went peacefully. You know? Now this is a violent man already, right?
Sure.
Who is standing with the family whose son just murdered a man. You know, a boy. Murdered a boy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, murdered another boy, yeah.
So when you really look into it, let's go ahead and add this one to the stage. So you have multiple witnesses told Frisco police officers who responded to the scene that Anthony had been seated under a tent for Memorial High School when the confrontation began. Now, obviously, wrong tent. You know, wrong tent, my guy.
What school did he go to again? Centennial?
Centennial. Yeah,
right?
He went to Centennial. So Metcalf allegedly told Anthony that he could not sit under there since he didn't go to that school. Okay. At that point, witnesses say Anthony grabbed the bag and reached inside it before telling Metcalf, touch me and see what happens. Right. So I'm going to read this without the emotion, and then I'll get into what the emotional response would have been. Right. So the witness said Metcalf grabbed Anthony to tell him to move. Anthony allegedly took out a black knife and stabbed Metcalf once in the chest before fleeing the scene. Metcalf's twin brother, Hunter, told police a similar story. Hunter said Anthony sat under the memorial tent and was told by Austin that it was reserved for those who went to that school. Hunter said Austin stood up and pushed Anthony to get him out of the tent, at which point he grabbed the knife and stabbed him. Okay, so we got that, right? Now, when you really break this down, okay, and you want to start talking about emotional response, it's already a bad day. It's bad weather out. You're trying to get dry. You're trying to find a place to sit up under a tent. You go into the wrong tent. Got it. Cool. Anthony looks up and sees he's in the wrong tent, at which point he could have said, maybe I should get the fuck out of here. Right.
Yeah,
this ain't my team. Right. We're at a track meet. We're at a competitive event. You know, people are obviously going to want me to not be around here unless he's got friends in there. Right. And none of the police reports state he has friends in that tent. Now.
Yeah, like it doesn't designate like a specific reasoning of like why he was there specifically, other than like what we can assume is, which is that trying to get out of the rain.
All speculation, right? All speculation.
Sure.
Now, Austin walks in and says, hey, dog, wrong tent, my guy. Get the fuck out. Ain't nobody gonna tell me to get the fuck out, right? Like you ain't finna talk to me like that. So I'll be like, nah, fuck you, dog. You know. But what the witness accounts state is he reached for his bag as soon as being spoken to, which means he already had ill intent. People want to talk about, oh, he was raised, with a 2-parent household and religion and this and that and the third, and he had a good job and he's got a 3.7 GPA in Centennial High School, whatever, right? What they're not looking at is, hey, dog, there's some pretty crazy people out there that do some crazy stuff that had a seemingly normal childhood.
Yeah, sure.
So we look at the reports, we look at the witness accounts, we look at what's going on. And after he stabbed him and fled the scene, the responding police officer said, hey, I have the alleged suspect. And he openly just says, not alleged, I did it. And as soon as being handcuffed and thrown in the back of the car, he's like, it was self-defense, right?
Yeah, like asking the officer, like to make sure.
Yeah. So Nick, how about you pull up the information regarding what Texas law states as self-defense?
Yeah, I got you. Bear with me here. Bing bop boop. How? So just to preface, right, this is an article from I believe it's a law firm in Texas. Um, if this isn't, up to snuff, we can kind of go into something else. So let's scroll down here. So self-defense is defined by Texas Penal Code 9.31. Section states that a person is justified in using force against another when and to the degree the actor but reasonably believes the force is immediately necessary to protect the actor against others' use of attempted use of unlawful force. Others' use or attempted use of unlawful force, excuse me. Proving self-defense can be difficult. However, people can only claim self-defense when they only use the minimum amount of force necessary for self-defense. So real quick, I just kind of want to take a pause right there. Right here. Only use the minimum amount of force necessary for self-defense. Now, the reason why I want to pause is this kind of goes back into that escalation of force triangle thing that we were talking about, the use of force continuum, right, that we talked about earlier. So basically what it's saying is you can only claim self-defense if the adequate, if the force that was being put upon you and the force that you retaliated with were equal, right?
Right.
Or, like this, like you responded with less force than what was being pushed upon you or at value, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
So let's get back into it.
I mean, so yeah, you got a kid basically, and there's so many false reports coming out about,
Oh yeah.
He smashed his phone on the bleachers and was bullying him, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess like now something came out about they got into a squabble last week or something like that, or like
Yeah,
a week
that like
prior.
the twins were bullying him and all this stuff, which is why he had a knife. I don't know, bro. You want my hot take?
Yeah, go for it.
Hot take. You bring a knife in your bag to a school track meet. Hot take. To me, that kind of sounds like premeditation. You know what I mean?
It really
A little bit.
does. A little
Little
bit,
bit.
yeah. Now, whether or not he was getting bullied, and
Yeah.
there's been no evidence of
Who
that so
knows?
far that I've seen. Who knows? But if it starts getting produced now, when it goes into trial, they were bullying me, they were bullying me, they were bullying me. Do you know what age we live in? Do you know how easy it is to tell somebody, "Hey,
Yeah.
man, I'm getting bullied. I don't like it. Tell them to
Well,
stop."
well, and the other thing about like being bullied in today's day and age too is, you know, did the parents know about it, right? Did the teachers know about it? Did the school know about it? Did the other kids know about it? So that being said, if he was being bullied, especially in today's day and age, why hasn't anybody came out and said that? Why haven't there been multiple reports of no, they were bullying him?
Well,
You know
that's
what I
what I'm
mean? They were
saying.
jumping
If
his ass before this, which is
That's what I'm
why
saying.
yada yada yada.
If they were telling, if they're saying now that he was being bullied prior, I promise you it's going to be a ploy to get sympathy for the trial so that he can walk,
For
right?
sure.
And nothing in this constitutes a strong self-defense case. People want to argue, oh, well, we were on the bleachers and he grabbed me and he started throwing me around and doing X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, they were on the bottom of the bleachers. It's not like they were up high, where he could have fallen and busted his head open.
Yeah.
They were on a pretty nice little flat tent area,
Well, and real
and
quick, let's also go back to, like we said, the escalation of force triangle. Let's pull it up one more time, right? If that's the case that we're in, where we're talking about pushing, shoving, things like that, hard physical contact, verbatim, the subject assaults you with some type of physical contact. Response, protect yourself or your property by hitting, kicking, or striking the person, right? None of those were done, right? It just went straight into deadly force.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, and you could even argue like, hey man, if he's at a school function, you know how many administrators are there at that function?
Yeah,
Instead of
one.
pulling out a knife, you go and get an administrator, say you're being bullied, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
another flip side, and this is a hot take, you know, Austin Metcalf, who was a child by definition,
Yep.
right? Full of testosterone, full of ego, didn't know this guy. Maybe he thought does he present, a danger to my teammates? Like, what the heck, this is a track meet, whatever, yada, yada. Instead of pushing him out of the way or trying to kick him out of the tent, he should have gotten to an administrator and said, hey, man, we got a guy from another school in our school's tent who needs to be removed.
Yeah, going to an adult would have definitely been a way more adequate, response by Metcalf and his brother, right? Now, obviously, right, I'm assuming that his brother was right next to him during this entire altercation. But yeah, no, exactly, right, like you said. There's how many schools here? This was, from my understanding, it was a championship meet, right? So we're talking multiple schools, multiple teams, multiple adults, like a plethora of adults, really, you know. And just like you said, testosterone's running, egos are high. We're 17 years old. Can't nobody tell me shit, right? So if you ask me, this is probably what went down. He saw that he was sat there. Metcalf saw that Anthony was sat there, right? Walked up to him and said, hey, man, this isn't like where you're supposed to be. Get the fuck out of here, right? Anthony probably was like, who the fuck are you talking to with all that bass in your voice, right? They get into a verbal altercation, right? Metcalf probably goes, fuck this dude, rips him out of the chair and tries to shove him. And then Anthony turns around, bam, does what he does, right? And then here we are. If you ask me, that's probably more than likely what happened. Now, mind you, could it have been avoided, right? If Metcalf had went to an adult? I mean, I would like to assume so, but we don't know that for sure because that's not what happened,
Right. I mean, honestly, anything could have happened. An adult could have even came by and said, hey, dude, you need to go. You need to go now. And he could have stabbed the adult,
True.
So we don't know what was going through Anthony's head. Now, here's the other thing, right? Do I believe he needs to go to jail for it? Absolutely. People are calling for the death penalty for this kid, which I think is wrong. I think it's wrong. Now, usually, you at the age of 17 in the state of Texas, usually, especially when it's a violent crime like this, you're going to get charged as an adult.
Yeah.
So he'll be lucky if he doesn't, right?
I'd be shocked if he doesn't, really.
Yeah. With that said, though, really don't think he's going to get 25 to life. If he's agreeable through the trial, I'm sure that he might get, if he does, and I'll be shocked also if he just gets to walk, but I'm going to say anywhere between 5 and 15. I'm going to go ahead and say anywhere between 5 and 15 because he, at the end of the day, he's still young, doesn't have a prior rap sheet, 3.7 GPA, track star, football star, stuff like that. He's
a lot of friends.
For all intents and purposes, Karmelo Anthony, up to this point, was supposedly a good kid. And this is hey man, you do the crime, you do the time, right?
Yeah, I mean it's the consequences of your own actions, really.
Yeah, well, too many. I think it's when you're that young and you walk around like your shit don't stink and whatever. Nobody can tell you, hey man, sometimes an adult is still the way to go because you're still a child. You're a young man, sure, but at the age of 17, you ain't paying your bills. We are. You live in our house. You drive in our cars. Shit like that. And I don't know, man. It's something about it's just wild, dude. Like, why? Another thing that I can't understand is why do they compare it to the Rittenhouse case in general? Now, Kyle Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old with an AR-15, and people would say it was an illegal firearm to have because he was 17. Which, if I'm not it was in a whole nother state, but in the state of Texas, I think that as long as your parents are okay with it, you can have a rifle. I got to look up that law. I mean, I only started owning rifles and stuff when I was over the age of 21, just because I could actually afford it then. But he goes out to this place to help people who were being injured after riots break out, and ends up getting attacked multiple times, and opens fire on killing 2 people and injuring a third. And then, people want to say, oh, well, Kyle Rittenhouse was a criminal and he murdered people and blah, 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 blah. This dude was getting beat with a skateboard over the head before he killed somebody. People were throwing stuff at him and trying to like take his rifle and shoot him. So classified self-defense, it's crazy to think about. Anyway, with that said, we are going to take a quick break. So, make sure if you haven't already, you follow us at all of our socials down below. You can also email us at the Tills4Thrills podcast gmail.com. Questions, comments, concerns, you have a topic you want to hear about, you want to come on the show and be a guest, you're more than welcome to email us down here, and we'll get back to you. We do respond. Another thing, if you're a veteran and you're in need of help, or if you're going through some stuff, right, you can call the Veteran Crisis Line, dial 988 and then press 1. With that said, we are going to take a quick break and we'll be back. Hey guys, sorry about that. Before the break, we were experiencing some technical difficulties, so we had to take a quick pause to kind of regroup and get ourselves situated. Before we went on the break, I was talking about how people are comparing this Karmelo Anthony case to the Kyle Rittenhouse case in talking about conservatives versus Democrats and stuff like that, because I remember reading an article one time just last week about it, how the conservatives were up in arms about Kyle Rittenhouse because it was self-defense, which footage shows the judge ruled, the court ruled that it was self-defense and he got to walk, right? Now, I'm not saying that, it was necessarily a good idea for him to be in the situation he was in Kenosha, but it was during the protest after the death of Jacob Blake, right? And the whole city started rioting. Now, you want to talk about use of force and escalation, that whole town went nuts. 48 hours were destroying businesses. They were destroying, they were hurting people. They were destroying landscape and going on and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So what did Kyle Rittenhouse do? He said, I want to go render aid to those who are injured. And in order to protect myself, I have an AR-15. And by golly, he defended himself, and turned himself into the police. He said, hey, guys, I killed 2 people. I shot 1 other. I'm turning myself in. Went through the entire trial where $2 million bail was set by Kenosha. They didn't lower that. Like they did for Karmelo Anthony, where it went from the $1 million to $250,000. Not only that, let's talk about how long Karmelo Anthony was confined versus Kyle Rittenhouse. What are some of your thoughts on that, Nick?
Yeah, man. So it, people keep wanting to go over like the similarities between the Rittenhouse thing. Well, let's talk about the similarities, right? People would argue, right, that Carmelo Anthony was being assaulted, right? So physical force was being used against Carmelo Anthony. With Rittenhouse, physical force was also being used, right? In Rittenhouse's situation, right, people were throwing shit at him, beating him over the head with skateboards, and some people out there can experience this. But I don't know if y'all have ever been hit by a skateboard. That shit hurts. I don't fucking care who you are, man. You catch like the bottom of a truck to like your shoulder, and you're like, God damn, you know. So right, so both of them are being assaulted, right? Rittenhouse, is rendering aid to people. He's walking around open carrying an AR-15, right? Says, in his mind, goes out with the mindset of I want to help these people, but also if it really boils down to it, if somebody tries to hurt me, I'm going to protect myself, and that's exactly what he did. He was being assaulted. He turned around, bada boom, bada bing. I mean, hey, right now let's look at the Anthony situation. Right now, when we say that Anthony was being assaulted, right? Unfortunately, right? There's no footage to show the degree of assault that's being taken place, right? That is happening. So we can't see if there was, obviously from eyewitness testimonies, right? It was a 1v1. They were running a one, right? But we don't know if they actually were running a one. We don't know if it was, just Austin and his brother, if it was just Austin and Anthony. We don't really know what happened. None of us were there. So, but going back to that escalation of force triangle, right? I, it's weird because with the Rittenhouse situation, he was being beaten over the head with skateboards and stuff like that, which would respond with the escalation of force, right? Like that would be like an appropriate response. Then you look at the Anthony situation, and if we're just talking about running a fade, running a 1v, just a one-on-one with the good old boys, and he pulls out a knife and stabs the kid, you know, we're talking about jumps on the escalation triangle. We're not talking about just matching
Right.
the force. We're talking about just straight to the top. Fuck this dude. You know what I mean? Which in most cases doesn't constitute self-defense. So those are kind of like the similarities between the two.
Well, yeah, I think similar arguments were used in each case, right? But the major thing is this really wasn't a self-defense. That break it down. Two kids going at it. Oh, hey, by the way, here's another hot take that people still don't believe. Joseph Rosenbaum, 36-year-old from Kenosha, one of the people that Rittenhouse killed, right? You want to hear something crazy? Had pedophilic God, he's a fucking pedo. Words, Julian.
Call it what it is, brother. Call it what it is.
English is hard, right? He was a child lover. Can you believe that? And they wanted to say, oh, well, you still didn't do us a service. You killed somebody. Well, this guy who loves children a little too much was chasing after him, trying to take his AR from him so he could shoot Rittenhouse with it. So he effectively acted in self-defense and got a criminal off the street, right?
Yeah.
Another one, Anthony Huber, apparently, and this is an alleged account, allegedly had multiple priors on his rap sheet, right? I'm not sure for what. I'm not sure if it was drug related or violence or whatever. Beating this dude over the head. He was a guy with the skateboard, by the way, right? When everything went to trial, all of his prior crimes and Anthony Huber, exoneration. like it never happened. So it's almost like they nationally presented this to really, really argue that 2A, right? That Second Amendment.
For sure.
So now we go into it. We're talking about Karmelo Anthony, and this is years later, and people are trying to tie in more racial division. You know, because they don't. Hey, I'm going to say it how it is. They don't like who's in office. Hot take, bro. You know,
Yeah.
tell me that's not what they're doing. They're dividing us further. You know, and honestly, I'm tired of the narrative. I'm tired of the racial narrative. But you look at people like Austin Metcalf. He had a lot of friends who were of color, whether they be black, Hispanic, Asian, you know, white, whatever, you know. And then you look at Karmelo Anthony, and he went to a predominantly white school, had a lot of white friends, grew up in a suburb, you know. This doesn't scream race war to me, man.
Yeah. Because they're both, if you really sit down and look at it, man, they're both, as far as like racial divinity and all this shit, you know, they're both really kind of in the same situation, just roles reversed. You know, Metcalf is a white kid that has a bunch of friends that are people of color. Anthony is a person of color that has a bunch of white friends. They both kind of live in kind of like the same sort of living situation. You know, two family household, great GPAs, bunch of friends, both in a bunch of sports. They're doing great academically. It's not about race. This is about the fact that a kid killed another kid.
Oh yeah.
That's just what it boils down to. A kid killed another kid.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. You know, and honestly, man, there's really only so much that we can cover on it, you know, especially until the trial comes and you know,
Sure.
are they going to produce new evidence or anything like that? So it's heartbreaking. The situation is definitely a tragedy.
For
Should have
sure.
never happened. There's a lot, you know, we could sit here all day arguing, like, you know, you could have gone left, you could have gone right, you could have talked to an adult, you could have, hey, how about not bringing a fucking knife to a school track meet?
Yeah.
You know, that's another big thing. Like, hey, don't do it.
Yeah, that's another big issue that needs to be talked about is the fact that he went to the track meet with a knife in his bag. You know, and it's not necessarily like he comes from like the super disparaged area where, you know what I mean, like walking outside of his house, like he has to, you know, fight to defend himself and protect himself and stuff like that. You know, if that was kind of like the circumstances, okay, cool. You know what I mean? I can kind of get behind that a little bit. You know, but like we said, great families, great GPAs, bunch of friends, bunch of sports, kind of the same situations or scenario, if you will. You know, so that's kind of like what I get caught up on is why was the knife in the bag in the first place, and why'd you bring it to school, bro? You know what I mean? Did you just forget that you had it? Because you definitely remembered you had it when you got pressed. You know
Oh yeah.
about being in the wrong tent. You definitely remembered you had that shit
Oh
because that was
yeah.
the first thing that you grabbed. You know?
Well, you know, I'm not really sure about Memorial High School or Centennial High School and how they go about the, you know, I mean, hey, don't they have like metal detectors in Michigan for their schools?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So in
Oh,
the
go ahead.
in the Flint schools before a lot of them got shut down, they had like metal detectors and like canines that you would have to walk by and stuff like that. But you know, like I said, like a lot of the schools are shut down now, like due to funding and dilapidation and all these different things.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe they do or don't have them. You know, I'd have to do a little more research, but maybe that's something that should be talked about. It's like, hey, man, you know, there's crazies out there. Hello, it's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. You know, maybe we should take more preventative measures. Or, you know, another thing is what people fail to realize is, you know, dude, FSU just had a school shooting.
Yeah.
So check this out. As far as I can tell, it was one dead, and the number might have changed, but it was like one dead, five injured, or like five dead and six injured, something
Like
like that.
six like critically injured or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So so the the shooter is the son of the 20-year-old son of a sheriff who had access to her firearm. and then went to this college and, fucked around and found out.
Yep.
So,
Also a tragedy.
also a tragedy, but it's like those things are just wild. It's like people do these kinds of things. Why not give a veteran, some slight training on that use of force dialogue, the use of force continuum, and put them up at schools? Because it seems like more and more it's just happening, and it's not because let me clarify this, because a lot of people are going to fucking clip this shit and they're going to be like, hey man, he thinks whatever, and how could you argue about the gun laws? And look, nah, shut up, right? If you take away guns or you impose such strict regulations on them that nobody can have them, the only two demographics that will have guns are cops and criminals.
Yep, because criminals are going to get them regardless.
Regardless.
Or regardless, yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, for real. Like cops and criminals, and that's it. So you think it's bad now? Wait until that happens and it's just the criminals. And they're, they've been talking about defund the police, blah, 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 blah. Now people don't even want to be a police officer because of the heavy criticism they've received over the past 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, with that said, if they take away guns, man, it'll just be criminals. So, armed guards standing at schools, protecting the kids, give a veteran a job.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It would just make more sense.
Yeah. Well, and while I agree with the whole like give a veteran a job thing, and like I think that's like a really good idea and give them training and all this stuff, but it's crazy to really sit down and think about the fact that our parents went to high school with shotguns in their trucks, and they would leave high school and go hunting with their friends or hunting with their dad or their grandfather or something like that, and now here we are. You know what I mean? 20, 30 years later, we have school shootings, we have people bringing knives to schools and stabbing other kids, and tragedies happening en masse. You know what I mean? And for what? For what?
Well, the thing that I don't like about it so much is that, people want to go down the line and compare the numbers as to X, Y, and Z happening and like all sorts of tragedies, people dying left and right, stuff like that. But then they're like, oh, but this was under the Trump administration, or this was under the Biden administration, or this was under the Obama administration, or the Bush administration. And I think it's really, really stupid to take a look at that, and instead of saying crazy is just kind of a human nature, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying it could never be prevented. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be prevented or we shouldn't take steps to prevent it. What I'm saying is you can't logically compare that to who's the president, because crazy is as crazy does. That's not the president's fault, right? It doesn't matter which administration you're talking about. Like that crazy dude who went into the Dark Knight premiere and shot up all those people all those years ago, right?
Oh yeah
Right. Did that have anything to do with politics? No, but they made it about politics, which is because they want what was it? Beto, I don't know, the tall, skinny fuck, the guy who was like, we're going to come to your house and take all your guns. It's like that was their agenda, So,
well, it just sucks too that a lot of times, they politicize these fucking tragedies, man, and it's like they want to make it about gun control, they want to make it about this, they want to make it about that, they want to make it about race, but it's like, man, yo, these people lost family members. These people a mother lost their son or their daughter. A son lost their mother or their father. You know what I mean? And it's like you're you're using this as, oh man, this is really good. We can push our agenda with this shit. Man, fuck your agenda, bro. What are you talking about? People lost family members. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, it's sad that it's gotten to the point where, candidates or parties are going this route, that it's like, oh man, there was a tragedy and there happened to be a person of color. Let's jump on this shit, man. You know what I mean? Let's push this, let's push that. And it's like, man, like these families already have enough to deal with as it is, let alone fucking, then, death threats start coming and fucking people are moving and you know what I mean? All this shit. And then it's like, it's all over the news. And then you have, people that are in positions of power within the government that are like, oh yeah, I think that because of this situation, this should happen. Man, shut your fucking mouth. How about you do your fucking job and mind your business as a politician? How about that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like leave these families alone, bro. Like you don't think they have enough like that they're going through already, dude?
Oh yeah. No, for sure, man. And it's all about, again, pushing that agenda. Like people would even argue that President Trump was pushing an agenda with the Lake and Riley case,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
he probably was, but
yeah, probably.
he was there in support of that effort because he knew that somebody had wronged her. Turns out it was some illegal immigrant, some criminal,
Yeah,
some murderer who was a prior offender who wasn't locked up, did this stuff. Or what was it? They went to jail and then they were released,
yeah,
something like that. And then like 2 weeks later, they went and did this tragic thing, And it's like stuff like that I can get behind because you're really trying to stop the bad stuff.
Yeah,
Right. What I can't get behind is they're using this as oh well, you're so hard on him right now because he's black and he stabbed a white boy and now you all are up in arms. So, no, that's not why we're up in arms. We're up in arms because the guy tried to claim self-defense by murdering another kid who the escalation of force wasn't necessary.
yeah, yeah.
So
A kid was killed. Like bro, they could be yellow, blue, green, purple, black. It don't fucking matter. A boy lost his life, and for what? You know what I mean? And for what? Because more than likely because you probably didn't like the way that he fucking talked to you. You know what I mean? Because
oh, yeah.
testosterone was high, he had a little bit too much bass in his voice, and you thought that today you were gonna let this motherfucker find out. You should have punched him in the fucking face then. You know what I mean? If you really wanted to let that motherfucker find out, let him find out. Let him find out that those hands are equal opportunities, that they're EO compliant. They're rated E for everybody. Let him find out. But
Yeah.
you going like, man, fuck this dude, and you gonna reach into a bag and stab a poor boy. You know what I mean? Like, come on, dude. Come on.
No,
You know,
there's no reason. No
no.
reason to bring a weapon to school. Y'all are children. Y'all don't know the ways of the world yet.
Yeah. Y'all
Like,
are still learning.
I'll be honest with you, dude. When I was 17, ain't nobody tell me shit. They couldn't.
No, I heard
You
that.
know, I walked around like I know what it's like to be a young boy.
Yeah.
Thinking you're a man, thinking you're strong, thinking no, you're invincible, nothing can hurt you.
Yeah.
And walking around, people talking crazy to you and you put them in their place type stuff. Now, was it right? I could have handled a lot of situations differently and a lot
Yeah,
better.
me too. Yeah. I can definitely
But
relate to that.
it took me a while to realize I'm growing into an adult. I'm not an adult yet.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't find out until I had my first son.
Yeah.
I was out there partying, hanging out, driving all over God's green earth and doing whatever. And then, my old lady comes up to me. She's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Oh, whoa." What did I do? I went and I got into school. I, started working at a really good company until I eventually found out we were pregnant with another one. And I was like, I should probably do something else, and I went into the Army.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's just sad, like it really just boils down to like, it's just sad, and we could sit here and we could talk about the right versus wrong and the self-defense versus not self-defense. Like, but bottom line is it's just fucking sad. You know what I mean? A kid lost his life because of what? Because an argument was had, because, being shoved, whatever the case might be. That's young man shit. You know what I mean? That's just boy shit. Like, that's going to happen. As a young male, you are going to experience that. You are going to experience bullying in some cases. You are going to be put in positions where you're going to need to defend yourself against somebody else. That's just part of growing up, But
Yeah,
what
man.
isn't part of growing up is responding in certain types of ways to certain situations. And the worst part of it all is I don't know how you feel about it, but as far as Anthony goes, I don't think that he should be put in prison for the rest of his life. I think that he should go away for sure. Because, like I said, a boy was killed. A boy lost his life. A mother and father lost their son. Punishments need to be made. But also at the same time, like, should this kid's life be over? Because they were both in the same scenario. Like we said, great grades, great friends, tons of sports.
I think personally, let the trial play out and see what he says and where his mindset was before I determine how long I think he should be put away. Right.
Yeah.
Because let's go back to that article that said, or maybe not even article, like a video or something that you and I watched, where it was like a week prior to the incident. He was being bullied by the Metcalf brothers. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if that is true, right?
I'm listening to you. There's some crazy shit going on outside.
Oh no, you're good. So getting back into it. If Anthony was getting bullied and chose to bring a knife to the school track meet, that's premeditated murder.
That's 100% premeditated.
That's 100%. Premeditated murder.
Yeah.
Under the guise of knowing this guy's going to get physical with me and I'm going to stab him.
I'm going to stab the shit out of him.
Yep. Yeah. In which case, I do believe he should be charged as an adult and serve the maximum penalty.
100%.
Do I think he deserves a death penalty for it? No, but maybe in 25 years appeal. Like try to hey man, good behavior, whatever. Can I get out? Sure. If it's a matter of he was scared because he thought this dude was going to beat the brakes off of him, and so he did grab a knife or whatever and stab him. Did it constitute self-defense, or what was self-defense? What was actually happening there? Probably not. I do believe 5 to 15 years you might learn your lesson.
Yeah, sure.
And it's crazy to think about, because people will say, "Oh, that's easy for you to say. You aren't in jail." It's like, yeah, because I'm a good noodle.
Yeah, I'm not a bad noodle. Yeah. Well, and it's like the other thing too is that, like, the Metcalf family lost a son, but also on the flip side of the same token, if Anthony goes to prison for the rest of his life, the Anthony family is losing a son too. Now, mind you, not the same thing. Not the same thing. I just want to make that abundantly clear. Having a member of your family in prison for the rest of their life versus having a member of your family dead, totally different. But in the same degree, like, Anthony's, life as a normal person is over, to at least a certain degree.
His life as a normal person is already over, given the situation, the high profile case that he's going through right now.
Yeah.
Like, he honestly, and I'll argue to say that the rest of his life, people are going to give him flack because of what happened.
Yeah.
Whether or not he walks, right? If he goes to jail and then gets out, it's still not going to be normal.
Yep.
If he wins the trial, bro, the division in this country is so bad. There's going to be threats. There's going to be harassment. There's going to be whatever, So, and that's just a way that, for whatever reason, this country's gone. In the past 20 years, the division is so bad. That's how people act, and it's really just stupid.
Yeah. Well, and when is have they set a trial date yet?
I can look that up. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything, because I know he just got released a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So let me see here. I can ask chat. Let's see here. Have they set a trial
While we're waiting
date
on that information, guys, like we said in the beginning, if you guys like this kind of content and you guys want some more of this stuff, you guys want to, send us in a topic that you want us to go over, you can always email us at the Tills4Thrills podcast at gmail.com. Be sure to follow all of our social medias. We have, all this stuff listed below: Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, X, Rumble, all these kinds of things. Also on Spotify. Go ahead and follow us, man. Give us a follow. Holla at your boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you guys are a veteran in need and you need to talk to somebody, and things just aren't working out for you, you can always dial the Veterans Crisis Line. You can dial 988 and just press 1.
Yeah, I do want to touch on that Rumble thing. I'm still working on the Rumble. We have a few videos up, some of our previous episodes and stuff like that, but we're trying to work with Rumble to start going live.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing, because we do want to start doing live podcasting, stuff like that. As you can see behind me, my scenery's changed quite a bit again. I'm still in Texas, still working on my move to Kansas, which will come at the end of this month. But because we're having to rely on family and stuff to kind of stay here or there for the time being while we visit family, I'm constantly having to move my setup. But as I'm looking at it now, as of now, a specific trial date for Karmelo Anthony, the 17-year-old charged with first-degree murder in the fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf during a high school track meet in Frisco, has not been set. It's currently under review by Collin County District Attorney's Office and is expected to be presented to a grand jury by the end of it doesn't say. Okay, so that's that. But like I said before, I'm working on the Rumble thing. We want to present live at some point. We are working on the Discord. So I know that I said last week that we were going to put the invite code out for everybody to join. I'm still planning on doing that. I might actually do that either tonight or tomorrow. So tonight being Friday, tomorrow being Saturday. We just want to grow our community. We want your interaction. We want you guys to talk to us. We want to be able to interact with people who are viewing our content and get ideas. You can always email us, the Tills4Thrills@gmail.com or the Tills4Thrills podcast@gmail.com. You can always follow our Facebook, Instagram pages, TikTok, X. We're on Spotify as well if you can't watch the video on YouTube. And then, like I said, we're still working on the Patreon. We're still trying to get you exclusive content only for the fans. You can become a member for free, in which case you will get the link to the Discord as soon as you become a member in the future. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Nick real fast while I read some of this article so I can give you some more accurate numbers.
Hey guys, what's up, homies? Yeah, just like you said, man, go on, give us a follow. Like we really, really want interaction with you guys. Even if that just means us having a conversation about stuff, we can always do that too. Like you said, you guys have anything that you want us to talk about specifically? If you guys want to, if you guys would be interested in coming on the show as a guest, you can always email us at the Tills4Thrills podcast@gmail.com once again. But what's up, guys? How's your guys' week been? Hopefully it's good. Hopefully the car is full of gas. You don't have to make an insurance claim.
Comment down below, man.
Yeah, talk to us, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully the family's good.
I got that number. Hold on, give me one. Sorry about that. My kids were fighting in the background. So it's expected to be presented to a grand jury by the end of June this year. In which case, as far as we know, Karmelo Anthony is released from custody as of April 14th. His bond was reduced from $1 million to $250,000, and he's currently under house arrest and is required to wear an ankle monitor. So, I mean, he's not, confined in jail. He's just confined to the house until it's presented to the grand jury. So he gets to go home and see his family every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like Nick was saying, how was your week? Comment down below. Tell us your thoughts. Make sure you share this with somebody. Even if it's not this episode, maybe it's another episode that we talk about something that might help. I know our first episode had a lot of good information about transitioning or going in to the military and transitioning from the military and some of the stuff on the VA and again, Veteran Crisis Line, dial 988 and press 1, man. With that said, I mean, I think that's about. Oh, actually, dude, I got something for you, bro.
You got something for me?
I got something for you. Give me 1 second, big dog. I got you.
What you got?
So this is going to be a callback to our episode 4 talking about the Ukraine war. Guys, also, if you haven't, ground.news, not a sponsor of this channel or the show, but it also has a lot of good articles on there, right? Breaking news, top news stories that's going on. And you can look at bias distributions versus who remains neutral in these articles and how they're portrayed. So you can go and pick and choose which specific article on that topic you want to read. You can see where some of the diversities in with the thought process from one versus the other political parties and stuff like that. But here's the situation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Friday that they plan on saying they plan on abandoning the Ukraine-Russia peace efforts if they can't come up with a solid deal within the next few days. That's kind of wild to think about, man. So, and it's funny because I remember specifically stating in the episode, not our war, dude. It's not our war. And President Trump has the entire world to deal with before, they can move on. And, it's like, hey, man, we presented an option. If you can't get behind it, then we're just going to leave you to it. And, you can fight your own war. Have Europe help you.
Yeah. Hot take, and I know, personally, a lot of, my buddies that are veterans, they feel the same way. America needs to stop being big brother and everybody's conflicts. If they have a problem with each other, fuck them. Fuck them. Who gives a damn? Obviously, right? Like, it affects trade, it affects all this shit, but that's because the U.S. puts their grubby little dick beaters in everybody's shit, right? But as far as wars and conflicts goes, stop sending our shit out. Stop sending taxpayer dollars to these other countries that don't give a shit about us. Stop funding their wars. If they die off, honestly, I don't really give a fuck. I really don't. I care about American lives. That's the only thing I care about. I care about American taxpayer dollars. I care about the American military. I care about American lives. Anything past that, I have sympathy, and empathy for these other countries that are at war. But me personally, Russia and Ukraine,
not our problem. Not our problem.
Not our problem. Don't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing that's pretty crazy, right? You ready for this one?
Talk to me.
So a report says that rogue FBI agents are opting out of deportation raids, leaving ICE stranded. So this comes from a big joint task force push from FBI Director Kash Patel to assist ICE with raids. This is an intergovernmental attempt to jointly go and find criminals and get them out of Dodge, right?
Handle business.
So this is also another callback to one of our bonus episodes we'll be uploading to the Patreon. But it's basically stating in here, and you can go, it's on trendingpoliticsnews.com, right? If you want to, it will provide you the link as well. But it's basically stating that these FBI agents are unavailable. That's it, right? So reported by War Room, correspondent Natalie Winters described how career bureaucrats are bucking calls from Director Kash Patel to jump on board with cross-agency task force intent on removing dangerous, undocumented criminals from America's streets. According to FBI whistleblower Steve Friend, concern is growing about a cohort of certain rogue agents who appear to be making excuses for why their field offices are unavailable during critical assignments. So that's literally just an argument stating, hey, man, sorry, we're not at the phone right now. We can't help you.
Yeah.
Dude, you do that in the military? Court martial?
Yeah, you going to jail, baby.
Yeah, that's like going AWOL, right?
Yeah. Real quick, for the people that have made it this far in the video, comment down below if you can see that 7 or if you're a colorblind little motherfucker.
Yeah.
The
think
mini
mine
game
was
for you guys.
I think mine was a 4.
Was it a 4?
Yeah, I think mine was a 4 or a 5, something like that. I've had like 10 people. Oh, you're talking about on the website?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no. When I was actually going through MEPS, they had me like look down, and the number was 4.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what mine was, but
No.
yeah.
Well, I think that might be why it's Tills4Thrills, right?
Yeah.
Look at that.
No.
Oh
Yeah.
man. I mean, other than that, like that's really like some of the that's really just all I got for today. And
Did you want to go over the other thing too?
oh yeah, I heard you had something.
Yeah.
Go ahead, present it to me.
So
Present it, big dog.
if you guys don't know, there's not necessarily a huge, but there's been a recent outbreak of measles in Michigan. Basically what happened was what happened was
What happened
is
was
so a 1-year-old had contacted or contracted the measles virus, and basically the family had kind of brought the child all over in Lansing, Michigan, and brought them to different places in Lansing, Okemos, all over Ingham County, the MSU campus, the Michigan State University campus. So I have this article here, and we can kind of go over it together because it's pretty interesting, because I don't know that a lot of people know kind of just how easy it is to contract measles. So, whoa, getting crazy, y'all. What up,
oh
homie?
my god. What was
Anyways,
that? Heart attack. There we
yeah.
go.
Anyways, experiencing its first measles outbreak since 2019. An outbreak is defined as 3 or more related cases, which has been confirmed in Montcalm County, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. These outbreak underscores how contagious measles is and how quickly it can spread. The agencies said 7 cases have now been confirmed across the state in 2025, 1 in each county: Oakland, Kent, Macomb, and Ingham counties, in addition to the 3 in Montcalm County. Officials say that the Montcalm cases are not related to any others across the state. The MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, remains our best defense, and 2 doses of MMR offer 97% protection against measles. Of course, we urge everybody to go through that. The disease is spread through direct person-to-person contact and through the air. People can contract measles by being in a room where an infected person has also been up to 2 hours after they left. So real
That's
quick,
that's pretty freaking scary to think about, though, man.
yeah, 2 hours. So let's say that you walk into a doctor's office, right, and you see a family with a young child walk out, and everybody's happy, the baby's healthy, everything's great. For 2 hours after they walked out of that room, that virus is still active in the air. Crazy to think about.
Yeah, dude. And is there anybody that would have the measles that would be, I mean, has it ever been reported that they might be asymptomatic and just carriers or anything like that?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't
Like,
know.
that's kind of a good question, because I know you could like contract COVID and be asymptomatic.
Yeah, I was asymptomatic.
But I mean, like, I know the measles outbreak was a deadly thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, to have this where the virus can stay in the air for 2 hours, you walk in, you could potentially breathe and get it.
Yeah. Well, even right here too, there have been 712 confirmed cases of measles across the U.S., including 7 outbreaks. Most of the cases are in Texas, which has seen 561 cases since late January, according to the State Department of Health.
Yeah, dude.
Services.
My dad was telling me about that. So I remember you saying a little bit of something about it the other night.
Yep.
When we were discussing the topics for the episode, and my dad was like, "Oh yeah, dude, I heard that something was going on in Texas too with the measles." I'm like, Jesus, bro.
Well, if you read that final statement, it says 2 Texas children have died due to the disease.
Yeah.
Nationwide case count is the highest since 2019, where 1,274 individual cases were confirmed in 31 states. according to the CDC.
2019. That's
Yeah.
wild to think about, man. So, man, it's really funny to follow conspiracies and see, like, some of the outrageous claims that people make. But
yeah,
I mean, you talk about the conspiracies behind COVID that seem like, hey man, that shit could have really happened. We don't know for sure, we weren't there. But then is it, are they going to talk about conspiracies for the measles?
yeah. If you guys want some more information on COVID and what it was like, during the pandemic from healthcare professionals, you guys can go ahead and check out episode 5. That's what episode 5 is about.
Yeah, episode 5 was a really, really informative episode. I really did enjoy that one.
Yeah, no, that one was good. Like that.
It kind of a tearjerker too, man.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of rough to sit there and listen to it, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Dude, it is pouring outside, and I'm like trying to talk. I'm like, oh yeah, man, oh rada 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 rada, and the thunder's like, yeah. I'm like, dude. So
well, I can't hear anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, because it's going nuts outside, dude.
Oh my god. That's crazy. Yeah. So apparently, it's supposed to be making its way down to us come Sunday.
A storm or measles?
I hope not measles. Goddamn.
Yeah, well, y'all already got it.
No, so the storm's supposed to get down. So it's supposed to last until like Tuesday for us in Texas, man.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be kind of rough trying to plan the next episode. You know what I'm saying? But we'll get it, man. We'll get it, and we'll have a good one.
Yeah, we'll do the thing for y'all.
Well, with that said, hey man, I don't really have a whole lot more for you guys. Again, comment down below your thoughts. Let us know what you think. Talk to us. Have a conversation with us. If you go back and look at all of our videos, we always try to make it a point to reach back out to people who have commented on our stuff, and we just want that interaction. We want to build a community with you guys. With that said, make sure you email us, the Tills4Thrills podcast at gmail.com. Put it up on the screen right there. Boom. You can follow us on all of our socials. Hey man, we're still working on it, but if you want to, you can become a member for free on Patreon. Patreon.com/the Tills4Thrills podcast. If you're a veteran, you're going through something, you need some help, dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line. Other than that, Nick, you want to go ahead and insert stuff and then top it off?
Yeah, let's do it up. Yeah, man. So, just like he said, all good information. Talk to us, email us, go ahead, follow us on our socials. If you guys want a jitterless energy solution, you guys can go ahead and check out w.gg. They got a bunch of good stuff on there, a bunch of good products. You can use promo code Tills4Thrills at checkout for a 10% discount. They started doing this solo leveling collab. Unfortunately, guys, our promo code doesn't work with that, but it works with everything else on the site. So if you do the solo leveling collab product, you won't get that 10%, but everything else on the site, you will get that 10%. Just like we've reiterated in other episodes, if you guys are a veteran in need and you guys need to talk to somebody, go ahead and dial 988 and just press 1. And I think other than that, we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Bye-bye.